It affects in a number of different ways. First of all, obviously, the most direct threat is to vulnerable individuals and groups, that people are dying because of COVID-19, but also they're being affected by being denied other treatment that they may need for other conditions, that either there's not a capacity in the hospitals or they're too worried about COVID to go and get their regular treatment, so people are dying for those reasons too. COVID's also serving as a poverty multiplier, that the most vulnerable people in the world are the ones losing their jobs, and so then they suffer other insecurities as a result of COVID. There's actually dramatic variation over the world, and it's probably not one we'd expect. We'd expect that the worst outbreaks of COVID might occur in perhaps developing countries or those with a limited capacity to deal with it. But actually we've seen the worst effect is the United States, closely followed by a number of European and Latin American countries, including the United Kingdom. And so we have to reassess why it is that people are succumbing in much greater numbers in countries like this. And it comes down to the response of governments and also societies. The biggest protection against COVID-19 is wearing masks. And those societies that are accustomed to wearing masks or willing to make a sacrifice and wear a mask, it's not a great sacrifice, but still a sacrifice, or those governments that are willing to mandate such measures as wearing masks or social distancing, those societies and those governments have managed to limit the impact of COVID-19 much more effectively than some of the richest, most powerful states in the world. Well, of course, no one knows that. I think really we're looking at the very minimum into halfway through next year. And that's only if we manage to generate an artificial herd immunity, by which I mean that we have a herd immunity generated by a vaccination program. If we just leave it to a natural development of herd immunity, for a start, that would lead to an unacceptably high number of deaths, but also it would take a very long time. The other problem is we don't know how effective vaccines will be. We have flu vaccinations, but there are lots of strains of flu, and the vaccines themselves are not 100% effective. So it may be that we're going to have to live with COVID for a very long time. Well, this is, of course, a major crisis, but crisis also represents an opportunity. And I think it's very apparent that some of the most successful responses to COVID have been in the Asia-Pacific region. And they've been amongst middle powers rather than great powers. And because cooperation in this non-traditional security area, pandemics and human security or human insecurity, is less threatening to national sovereignty than cooperation in national security issues like nuclear weapons or weapons proliferation or defense spending. It actually represents an opportunity for those countries that have been doing reasonably well to get together and share their expertise, not only with each other, but also perhaps with the wider community. And countries here, we're looking at South Korea, of course, but also Taiwan, New Zealand, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, Australia, some to a greater extent, some to a lesser extent, but it's clear that this region has done much better than other regions of the world. And despite the outstanding lack of hardcore traditional security cooperation, maybe we have an opportunity for non-traditional security cooperation in this region. I actually have 3 ongoing research projects related to human security and the pandemic. The first looks at security interdependencies. So looking at how traditional and non-traditional security challenges and policies impact on each other. The second looks at the rise of middle power activism in the humanitarian realm. So not just looking at pandemic response, but also looking at things like development assistance, disaster resilience building, and reaction to natural disasters, environmental initiatives. So all of these humanitarian security perspectives that have been pushed by middle powers as part of their niche diplomacy. And the third actually goes back to your previous question. My third area of research is looking at the extent to which this provides an opportunity for not only non-traditional security cooperation amongst Asian and Asia-Pacific entities, but also the extent to which this might be able to spill over into traditional security cooperation, or at least de-escalation of conflicts between different countries in the region.